Georgie and Mandy's first marriage has quietly kicked off one of the most interesting dynamics the show has attempted so far, a rivalry that feels small on the surface, but could grow into something much bigger if the writers keep leaning into it. And honestly, I'm starting to get worried about Georgie, because this new tension is exposing cracks he's been trying hard to hide. Season 2 has really pushed Georgie into situations where his weaknesses aren't just hinted at, they're sitting right there in the open. And this rivalry that's forming? It's not between him and another romantic interest or with Mandy's family, like some fans assumed. Instead, it's a rivalry connected to Mandy's new career and the way the people around her respond to it, especially now that she's becoming the weather girl everyone suddenly wants to talk to. What's happening is subtle, but it's clear. Georgie is starting to feel threatened, not necessarily by a person, but by Mandy's growing confidence and the attention she's getting for the first time in a long time. Up until this point, Georgie has always been the one in the relationship who had something steady. He was the one with the business, the one with a clear direction, and the one people in the family relied on. Mandy was struggling to find her footing after the pregnancy, and even though she's always had a big personality, she didn't really have a space to shine. Now she does, and that changes everything. The rivalry, in a way, is between Georgie and Mandy's success. And that creates a problem because Mandy isn't trying to win anything. She's just finally being seen. She finally has something that's hers, something she didn't have to compromise for. And in the process, Georgie is realizing that supporting someone you love isn't always comfortable or convenient. Sometimes it pokes at your own insecurities. What worries me is how quickly Georgie shifts from proud to uneasy. One minute, he wants to be the supportive husband, and the next minute he's trying to downplay her accomplishments or questioning why people are giving her so much attention. It's not coming from a place of malice. Georgie loves her, but it is coming from fear. Fear that he's losing his place. Fear that Mandy might outgrow him. Fear that he won't be enough once she finally steps into who she's meant to be. This is where the rivalry becomes dangerous. Not because Mandy is changing in a bad way, but because Georgie doesn't know how to handle change that isn't centered around him. He grew up in a house where everything was a reaction to Sheldon's brilliance, Mary's expectations, or George Sr.'s struggles. Georgie never really learned how to navigate emotional shifts with confidence. And now, instead of a sibling rivalry, he's facing something much more personal, the idea that his wife might be discovering a different version of herself, one that's louder, bolder, and more independent. The show is walking a fine line here. On one hand, the writers are using this tension to deepen Georgie's character, finally showing why he ended up the way he did by the time the Big Bang Theory rolls around, divorced young, trying to figure out life, always searching for something solid. On the other hand, they're reminding us that Georgie's charm and good intentions don't protect him from jealousy or insecurity. What makes this rivalry compelling, yet worrying, is that Mandy isn't doing anything wrong. She's not trying to overshadow him. But for someone like Georgie, who finds a lot of his self-worth in being needed, her independence feels like a threat. And if he doesn't learn how to deal with that soon, it could turn into resentment. Still, there's something hopeful here. Georgie has been given more emotional depth in First Marriage than he ever had in young Sheldon. And this storyline, this early spark of rivalry, could be the turning point that forces him to grow up. Not just because he loves Mandy, but because he finally realizes that love isn't about being the one in control or being the one people depend on. Sometimes love means stepping back and letting the person you care about take up space, even if that space feels bigger than yours. So yes, I'm worried for Georgie. But I'm also excited to see whether he rises to the challenge. Because this rivalry isn't about winning. It's about whether Georgie can evolve fast enough to keep up with the woman he chose to build a life with. And that's a story worth exploring.